Go ahead.
So happy to be here. My name is Dan Janowski, or Daniel Janowski. This is a problem I'm having. So I have a very black and white presentation for you. I made it in about 20 minutes, but it's a topic that I think will be interesting to at least some of you. So if you've ever had a beam crash because of an application get end that's happened somewhere in your application, this is for you. So it's a few simple steps. It uses nimble options. Nimble options was written by Jose, and I asked him who wrote it, and he says, oh, I did. And I said, oh, it's pretty good. He says, we really just need types. But for this, I think it's actually, for this, I actually think it's a really good application because you're getting values from outside. So types would be, all right. So the basic operation here is essentially declaring a schema, it's declarative, of what you are looking for in terms of your options. So this is for configuring, or this has to do with a repo, right? So database, host name, et cetera. You can make things required. You can have keyword lists. You can have all sorts of different types. It's all in the documentation. But here are a couple of basics. So you've got the repo, you've got the ecto repos, which is usually your list of atoms for the repos you've got. And then I have this string map thing, which is basically how you could do a custom validator. So it's using a module to call a function. Okay, so you have that in your module. You then compile it, which I'm setting to another attribute. You then put all this stuff into a module. So what I've started doing is creating an options module, which is directly under whatever my OTP application module name is. So you've got the schema input, you've got the schema. One really nice thing is that it automatically generates documentation, which you'll see later. And then I have a few like convenience functions which to retrieve the schema, retrieve the documentation, and then to actually validate with whatever the configuration input is. Okay, so then I put this in the application start before any children start. So you've got the passing an argument, which is the OTP app, because you kind of have a chicken and egg problem there. It's getting all the environment for that. It's passing it to validate. And then if that's okay, then it goes on to starting the application, which I just made another function inside the application file. This is inspecting in the event that there's an error. You get to see documentation. So then I also added a mixed task, which is really nice because well, what are the options for this thing? And that's really not that hard. You kind of do the standard mixed task thing, but there's also this nice options docs business that you can put in the module doc. And then you write a mixed task run, which starts the application, or it doesn't start the application, but pulls the configuration in and pulls in the runtime. And then, so this is sort of boilerplate. And then does the same thing that happens at the application start. And there's probably a way to kind of write this once instead of writing it twice, but this was 20 minutes worth of work. Okay, so you can validate, right? So this is wherever your configuration's coming from config EXS or runtime environment, whatever it is, this mixed task will then validate that your schema wait a second, that the options match the schema. Okay, when you do help, you get a list of all the things that it's expecting. So this is a really good way of documenting what your application expects, which is something that I think we all kind of do poorly. And then here I'm starting IEX with no options. So it crashes and then prints out documentation. And so why do we do that? All right, so what's the idea here? I think it's probably pretty obvious, but the key is that you're making sure that all the options are available at the very beginning. You have the documentation, which is very good for other people who come along, but also it's good for DevOps because when the thing crashes, they can say, oh, you're missing blah, 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 whatever this whatever this property is. The cool thing about this is that if you do it in supervisors and other applications, then when those things get started, it will actually print out why they're failing. And there are some unsolved problems, but I'm out of time. So thank you very much.